afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So we all have now been given the reasons why this session becomes very important, why education sector is going to play a vital role as far as India's economic growth is concerned. Dr. Bipin Nair, I think 2 points that were raised earlier were that one, we need a future-ready workforce, and in doing that, the role of universities becomes very, very important. So I want to ask you first, where are we right now in terms of reforms in the education sector? Because it is very important. The students, the children in the universities today are going to be decision makers, policy makers, nation builders of the future. So are we on the right track as far as reforms in the education space are concerned?
Thank you, and it's a real pleasure to be here, and I wanted to thank the Times Network for inviting me. As far as education and our youth are concerned, I guess I should first begin with the main criteria that we should imbibe, which is inculcating true values, which makes the difference between our education system and anywhere else in the world. So when I say true values, a sense of integrity, a sense of honesty, a sense of applicability, a sense of wanting to do the right things at the right time, and a sense of belonging to the country. The nation belongs to us, we belong to the nation. And that, all of that is very much part of what our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has said, Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat. And that is the kind of approach that we have to take, where we train, we educate, we bring in that culture that will hold our youth in the best as going forward.
Interesting. And we have also seen how Prime Minister Modi always talks about how we need to turn crisis into an opportunity. World over, the research by Indians is being appreciated. Then why is it, sir, that I'm just looking at some government data. About 13.35 lakh Indian students are currently pursuing higher studies abroad. You talk to anybody after 12th, they want to go abroad, learn something from there, because the perception is maybe it's better there. Are we doing anything to also tell these students that here in India too, a lot is being changed, and that's the reason why the innovation that is happening here is because these people are the products of the universities within the country?
Exactly. Because when we talk about empowering minds, the first thing that needs to happen is changing that mindset that our country tends to have, where the idea is that if it is something excellent, it must have come from America or Europe or somewhere else. That's not the case. That may have been the case some time ago. But now India is totally poised, is capable of doing the things that we need to do to take India into that future. And the simple examples that one can look at what we did with Chandrayaan-3. Totally indigenous research. Putting India, scripting history by putting India on the moon, and being able to do that, what we should take pride in is frugal innovation. Very few people paid attention to the fact that that project that ISRO put together cost only 615 crores, about 75 million US dollars. That was less than half of what Hollywood took to create a science fiction movie, Interstellar, in 2014. That cost $165 million. So that, as well as what we experienced with the COVID pandemic, where the biotechnology sector in India came forward and developed vaccines that were world-class, and we were able to be the first nation to be able to combat that problem and vaccinate our 1.4 billion population, and then donate 70 countries that vaccine. All of that was capable with research and development done right here in India. So that mindset needs to change. Our young students, as you said, immediately after the 12th, they want to go to America or Europe or Australia or New Zealand or Ireland, pay 30 lakhs or the equivalent of that, $30,000 for example, and get an education that may not be even comparable with what most of our universities are able to offer today. So why have that kind of an approach? Most institutions in India, and today we are talking about 1,400 plus universities that offer world-class education, right from the initial stages at the bachelor's level all the way to the PhD level. And we have that experience that our graduates are able to compete with and outclass people from other parts of the world and walk into positions elsewhere where they get that experience, they get that exposure, and are able to return to India and offer the best of that training to bring India to a level where we are capable, we are competent, we are able to do all of that. And that's not just with major projects, even at the university level. For example, in Amrita University, where we are looking at major problems. For example, India has the dubious distinction of being the diabetes capital of the world. 800 million diabetics across the world. Of that, 220 million are here in India. At Amrita, collaborating with the Indian Institute of Science, we are looking at what can be called a formal sort of development where we will be able to provide that kind of healthcare with what is known as an artificial pancreas. Wireless sensor networks that have been able to save lives in landslide-prone areas. And that has been developed and have been implemented so that we are able to provide that kind of a warning system at least 24 hours in advance and save lives because almost $400 million are lost due to landslides and all across the world.
So you're saying, of course, mindset needs to be changed. Is something being done in this direction? Because listening to you makes me feel that perhaps we have the capability. The universities are making efforts as well. But is something else being done too to ensure the reason students go abroad, perhaps those reasons are brought here? Are there any kind of collaborations or bhagidari that is also happening in the education system?
Absolutely. So right from the beginning, and that is true for a lot of institutions in the country, along with Amrita, we have been able to collaborate and interact with the best universities in the world. The top three, for example, the Oxford University or Cambridge or the University of California and so on, where we are able to have not only academic programs where we are able to have an exchange of students and faculty, but also research programs where we have exchange of personnel, exchange of research material, and we are able to have these universities that are world-class, are supposedly world-class, bring in that expertise, have that kind of exposure, and we are able to collaborate with them, work with them, and have those kinds of interactions where we are now looking at joint degree programs at the bachelor's level, master's level, PhD level, and that kind of an exposure, that kind of training enables us to have that kind of an exchange with world-class universities, and that will always be beneficial for all of us.
I want to also talk to you a little bit about skilled workforce, because that's the need of the hour. Industry will also only hire people who are, ready to adapt to the changing, technology that we are seeing now almost on a daily basis. I want to quote some data here. The economic survey, the last economic survey that we got of 23-24, it pointed out that there is a skill gap among many of our graduates. As per the survey, only 51.25% of India's graduates today are deemed employable, which simply means, if I just turn around this data, around 49% of the graduates today are not employable. Are we doing something to change this trend? And what are we going to do with these graduates? Because unemployment is a big issue. And if our education system does not produce employable graduates, it's going to be a big problem for the entire country.
Sure. When we talk about employability, it also brings into focus the kind of training that these students are able to get at the schools, at the universities, and all across, where a training that would be providing that kind of employability. And to that extent, the government has put in a lot of different programs, different plans, where there is support offered not only at the educational level. For example, the Department of Biotechnology, which I'm very familiar with, of the Government of India, has now implemented what they call a DBT Skill Vigyan program,
right,
where there is there have been at least about 21 states which have been identified to bring in institutions from those states. And the Department of Biotechnology of the Government of India provides funding so that there can be upskilling of the faculty who are involved in higher education, of upskilling or training of technicians who can be industry ready, and also of students who have probably not got that kind of exposure in the colleges and institutions where they are. So that and several other such programs, with the idea that we need to be focused on this kind of an approach. And then we talk about artificial intelligence, right, and the implementation of those skills. That is also happening. And right here at Amrita, where in our hospital, we have now in our pediatric cardiology department, right, for example, holograms that are created using artificial intelligence, where a doctor is able to walk through a patient's heart before doing the surgery the next day.
So innovation clearly is something that's happening, and skill development is what you're also focusing on. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking with us. Of course, education sector is very, very important for India's economic growth, and thank you for giving us those insights.
Thank you for the opportunity.